All right, well, I'm going to pass over to Dani now. We're recording.
Okay.
So this is the 35th On the Up Independent Learning Professionals session, and Dani's going to present on VideoScribe. So over to you, Dani.
Great. Okay, so Okay, so this is a presentation. I updated it a little bit yesterday, but this is a presentation I've done at a couple of different conferences. When I built it in Storyline, and the reason I put it in Storyline is for two reasons. One, it keeps my content a little more proprietary in terms of, and more protected when you speak at a conference. You know, I like my materials to be a little more safe, if you will. And then number two, it allows me to put it in our LMS so that if people want to go out and view my presentation, they can go out there and view it. And so that's why it's in Storyline and not PowerPoint. I know that's kind of different for some people. So anyway, okay. So we're going to talk about creating dynamic whiteboards, whiteboard style animation. And so I guess the assumption that I made was that some of you have done it and some of you are brand new to it. So, and I'm going to, hold on, let me pull up my chat screen. Awesome. Okay, awesome. So there might be some stuff in here that you might already know in terms of whiteboard animation, but I sort of started from the beginning so that you can, everybody's sort of at the same place. So when this is just a simple whiteboard animation, there's music playing in the background that you may or may not be able to hear. And this was just when people walked into my session, this is what was playing, and I had it on a loop. So the tool that I used to create this was VideoScribe. There are other tools out there, but this is sort of just my intro video that I would have playing in the background. So you get an idea of what a VideoScribe can look like, tell a story, honestly. So what I was going to talk about today is, what is whiteboard animation? Why would you create one? How can you use it to enhance your learning? What tools can you use? You can either draw your images, or you can, grab your images from elsewhere, and then sort of how to get started. So whiteboard animations are truly started with RSA and RSA Animate. And when the beginning of these tools came on the market, well, actually, when the beginning of VideoScribes started, I had to turn this down a touch. These were drawn illustrations that would take hours and hours and hours, and some are still done this way, and then they would put up a video camera, which would then record either a whiteboard or a piece of paper, and it was very costly to do this. So over the past, I would say 3 to 5 years, some tools have come on the market that make that much easier. But these are the first whiteboard animations that we started with, and as you can see, they're very, very detailed. They're all hand illustrated, and they were very expensive. They were anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 to do one of these, because you hire an artist, you hire a video crew, and the whole 9 yards, and then lots of editing. So I'm guessing most of you have probably seen some of these in the past. So then what they, kind of the next piece of evolution of whiteboard animation was these drawn images on pieces of paper that were put onto almost like a whiteboard using a hand. Again, they were videotaped, that interaction. Like you can see the little string on here that they're using to pull these across. And this was kind of phase 2 of whiteboard animation. So again, it continued to get a little bit cheaper and a little bit easier. So have you guys seen these before? These two examples?
Yes, I've seen something like this very similar before.
Yep. So these are sort of the first two types of animation that we had and that were used. You can see they're on a whiteboard. And then it evolved in the last few years into a product called VideoScribe, and there's some other products on the market where you see this writing hand, and it's really telling a story or presenting information. And so this one happens to be about OneNote and OneDrive. And so this was sort of the look and feel that you'll see now. If you watch some of the UPS commercials on TV, you'll see those. I think one of the lawyers here in town in the Denver area has used them in his commercials as well. And these are all created in software. So in this case, there's no video camera being used. There's no real hand being used. These are graphics that have been pulled into a program that then put in the hand for you and sort of draw out these images. So this is kind of the latest and greatest in terms of what's out there. So we went from hand-drawn illustrations to hand-drawn illustrations on a whiteboard to what you're looking at right here, and that's sort of the evolution of whiteboard animation in a nutshell. And these can be really useful. Now the other type of whiteboard animation that you can see out there, and this is done in the same program as the previous one, but this is more of an artistic illustration and more of an artistic expression as opposed to more on a learning scale. There's a great video that shows the artist who actually drew all of these illustrations and then brought them into VideoScribe and created them. And you can see it's very artistic and very detailed and very almost tedious, if you will. So this is just another sample of what you can do with VideoScribe. And there's music with this one as well. So I'll let that play just a bit. Okay. So why would you use a whiteboard animation? If you want to put in the chat window or speak in your microphone, what are some reasons you might use a whiteboard animation in your work that you do?
For me, one of the things that it makes it really simple, or one of the things that I'm actually looking at finding a vendor for a whiteboard animation right now for one of my other projects, Cannabis Integrations, because a lot of people don't understand what we do in terms of instructional design.
Sure.
And especially in the cannabis industry, where a lot of decision makers are kind of quote unquote coming out of the closet.
Sure.
In terms of no longer are they they're a legitimate industry now.
Sure.
So why is training important? Well, I don't know. Like, I've just been making money selling cannabis for my entire life. I don't need training. But when you sort of put it together in that sort of like Ant was saying, replicating a flip chart, or Andrew was saying, making a boring topic more engaging, like training is pretty boring, right? Like if you go to a dispensary owner and say, hey, listen, we want to train your staff to do this, blah, 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 they're going to stop listening to me immediately. But if I say, hey, listen, this is the turn on, if I animate, hey, I can get a 50% return on investment from training, it makes a lot more sense.
Sure. So definitely making a boring topic more engaging. I think as instructional designers, if we work in Storyline or Captivate, very often people get used to seeing the same thing in your courses. I think to replicate a flip chart in classroom training is a great point. I think anything I always tell people, if you're an instructor-led trainer, anything that you write on a flip chart, a flow chart, a diagram, something that you want people to really see, maybe how a process comes together, whiteboard animation is great for doing that. And it just kind of spices things up and changes what people get used to seeing. I think the other one that I don't see on here yet, but another one that works really well is when you're doing math. So when you're trying to explain a math concept, so we did a sales course for a company, and they wanted to show people how a scenario how that sale could be quantified. And we used numbers, you know, in terms of if you're a real estate agent, you sell this many houses, and we did this math problem. And if you were in a classroom, you'd write that on the flip chart most likely so that people could see that computation. And in this case, it works really well when you want people to see numbers and see the relationship between those numbers. So a few other reasons, you know, again, I think people get tired of the PowerPoint. Marketing is a great way to use this, a shareholder meeting potentially. Anytime you want to tell a story, it can be really powerful to use whiteboard animation because people are engaged, they're sort of watching this. We also used it to introduce, we had a company we did some performance management training for, and they had never done performance management training or performance management period. They'd never set goals, and this was a fairly large company. They'd never set goals, they'd never have employee performance reviews. It was all new. So we created a video as more of a marketing tool to really say, this is what it's all about, and this is why you should care. And that sort of helped engage the audience. Then they would go take the e-learning. So that's another example as well. I'm just peeking at the chat over here. Okay, show a series of steps. You could use it for conferences, product launches, and then of course instructional. So instructional is just one of the many ways that you could use it. How can it enhance your learning? So the sales example I was using, the client, I think this is the one I have on here. Yeah. The client came to us and they said, we've got a bunch of sales folks who aren't, they're not closing deals. And so we built some e-learning, some scenario-based e-learning, but at the end of the day, they really wanted to drive home the point that people needed to be following the sales process that they had implemented. And so they also wanted managers to be able to coach their salespeople on what they were doing well and what they needed to improve on. And so they physically wanted to show the manager coaching as they, from this job aid that they used on a regular basis. So some of the images aren't fabulous by any means. We asked for good I think Megan, she's on this as well. She's on my team and she's here today, and I remember her requesting good graphics like a million times, and these were as good as it got. You know, you work with what you have. So this was really to help them coach people on what they needed to improve on in their sales life cycle checklist. And then the coach could actually do this because they weren't fully doing it, and so this was to really show them how to do that, what the expectation was. So that's just another way that it can sort of enhance the learning process. So what tools can you use? So you can hire somebody to do these for you. There are companies out there who you can hire. They will storyboard it. They will build it. Many of them will use video cameras as opposed to software. They have artists on staff that will draw custom graphics for you. Some of them include Scribe. I've actually met the guys over there at several different conferences, and great group of people. And they will actually, you hire them, they'll do it for you, and basically give you a finished product. They sort of partner with you to do that. There's some other companies on here that I haven't used, that I haven't interacted with, but they do the same thing as Scribe. They basically will do all the work for you. So that's always an option. Most of us on this call really like to do it ourselves, and so there are a few companies that are not options anymore, so they have red lines through them. Pretty much the three big ones that are on the market, and they're emerging all the time, but VideoScribe, which is a UK company, the company is Sparkle, S-P-A-R-K-O-L, and then Powtoon is another one, and then Go Animate. So when you look at those sort of three tools, I landed on VideoScribe, and I actually started using it. I think we started using it about 3 years ago. Yeah, probably about 3 years ago. They had just come out. And when I first started using it, it was one of those new tools that was still it was in its baby or infancy stages. It was a little buggy and had its quirks and everything. And then over time, it has just gotten better and better and better. Now it has a lot less quirky, doesn't have technical issues that it had when I first started using it. So it's been a fun product to watch evolve. Powtoon is another one. It's more of a, looks like a lot of people have used Powtoons. It's more of a cartoon look and feel, so you'll have to go check them out. All of them offer free trials. And then Go Animate is the other one. They're always at conferences in the expo area, and they have a great product as well. They are more expensive than VideoScribe. So when I was kind of weighing the two, I went with VideoScribe because it was cheaper at the time, and it still is a little bit cheaper. So all fabulous products. It just depends on the look and feel that you're going for. And you know, as instructional designers and freelancers, you know, we could buy every product depending on what client we have. And so, you know, we sort of honed in on VideoScribe and said, okay, this is the one we'll recommend for people when the opportunity arises. So. Yeah, you're right. Powtoon offers great deals on their pricing, especially for educators. If you're in the education field, they are way reasonable. Yes, they are easy to incorporate into Storyline. They export out as an MOV or an MP4, and then you can just put them right into your Storyline. Because this is actually, my presentation is Storyline, and all of these have been put in here just as videos. So they're very easy. So here's your question, and in video, I'm speaking mostly to VideoScribe because this is how VideoScribe works, but you have two options. You can draw or you cannot draw. So if you are an artist or you know an artist, what you can do is you can use a variety of different tools that you can actually illustrate your ideas on homegrown created illustrations. So if you are an artist, this is a great option to make really custom video scribes, because what you do, and I've got two links over here. Let me grab them real quick. I think it was this one. Yeah, I've got it on my other screen. Hold on, it's coming. The first link takes you to the creative blog, and here, and I'll put this in the, this is the first link that's in my presentation. This is the 24 best iPad art apps for painting and sketching. So if you are an artist and you want to play around with some of the apps out there that you can actually draw on your iPad or draw on your Surface, if you have a Surface tablet. These are a whole bunch of different apps that they recommend. So you could actually draw them, and then you can export them and bring them into VideoScribe. So that's one option. The type of file that VideoScribe likes, and I'll put this in here as well, is an SVG. So anytime you want to draw a custom graphic, or you want VideoScribe to draw a custom graphic, you want to save it out as an SVG. And what it will do is it'll draw it in the way that that vector graphic was created. And so you also have the ability to redraw a graphic in Illustrator. So you basically trace over the lines, and I have a job aid that tells how to do this, but it traces over you can trace over the lines and then save it as the SVG, and VideoScribe will draw it in that exact pattern that you traced it in your Illustrator file. So it has a lot of customizability. I don't think that's a word, but I just made it up. But you can definitely be very, very creative in terms of your illustrations if you are an artist. So those are the two links that I just put in the chat box. So a couple of them, Sketchbook Pro. I don't remember what this one is called. This is Photoshop. Or you could even draw on one of those tablets if you have one of those. I think Robert maybe mentioned last week or a week before that he had one of those when he was mapping out. Yeah, okay, I thought you did. and then, or sketchbook. You could do this on paper, and then you could scan it, bring it into Illustrator, and go from there. So that's for all the really creative people. I am not that person. So this is what I do. I go for the non-drawing options. The non-drawing options is you can bring in your own graphics. Again, you can bring them in from Illustrator. You can bring them in from, I like canned stock photos. You can bring them in, I think there's, the other one I use is vector stock photos, I think is what it's, or vectorstock.com. And any vector graphic, you can save it as SVG, and you can bring them in, and it'll draw that image. You can also use VideoScribe graphics. So there's a ton of graphics that they will have already that you can just use. And then they have VideoScribe has implemented SVG Studio, which is a third, I think it's a third party that they've just partnered with. I don't think they own them, but you can purchase graphics as well within VideoScribe. And then finally, canned stock photos is another one where you can get a lot of vector graphics as well. So those are your two options in terms of drawing versus not drawing, but you can be as custom as you need to be. So here's where I start. And Ant, I would be interested to know how you start, because I know you've done a few of these, and this is what works for me. Certainly, if this format doesn't work for you, change it up to meet your needs. But this is when I do a conference, this is kind of what I recommend to people who are brand new. I highly recommend writing your story. So for example, in your script, I basically wrote the story of how to quantify a sale. So this is sort of the audio that we were trying to articulate. I know Megan, who's on the call, she's on my team. She wrote the script for an example I'm going to show you here in a minute, and she wrote the story first. She wrote the script with the client to make sure that we really had the flow down before we even jumped into the tool. So step one is writing the story. And for me, this might be as simple as sitting on my front porch in Denver, watching the mountains, drinking a beer, and typing on my iPad. I mean, honestly, it's just articulating what that story that you want to tell is. So now you can all envision me sitting on my front porch. Okay, so step two is to create the scribe. So organizing your storyboard and your graphics or sketches. So we did this in Word actually. Well, kind of Word. We also brought in, we brought in graphics. So we had sort of the script on the left side, and then the images we were thinking about on the right side. And then we had again, an approval process where we asked the client to go approve that. And once they were approved, then we created the scribe. And so we started popping in the graphics and the text and all of that. And this is one of the first scribes I did, actually. Gosh, I did it probably 2 or 3 years ago. And it's just like anything else. If you go back and look at your e-learning from 2 years ago, you'll look at it and say, oh my gosh, why did I do it that way? But it's part of that evolution and that learning. And so I think there's value in showing you what I would do differently if I were to do it again. And then the next step, what we do is we record the audio. So choose your tool and record your audio. We tend to use Audacity, which is this little icon with the little headphones. You could use Adobe Audition as well. You could use all kinds of tools. They actually have some music options in VideoScribe as well if you just want video. And then identify a rough time that you need to record so you sort of know your overall pace for the audio. And then you can record your audio. In the one example we're working on right now, our client recorded the audio. So, and then they've been sending it to us. And so we've added silence in where we needed it so that the timing is right. So yeah, Audacity is the free. That is correct. Yep, awesome. Step 4 is we sync the audio. So then we drop the audio into VideoScribe and we start syncing it and timing it with the different images that we've already put in. And then the last step is we publish it. So we publish it, again, you can publish it as an MOV, you can publish it as an MP4, and then we integrate it somewhere. So it might just live on the web as a video. It might go on YouTube. It might go to into your e-learning, it might go into PowerPoint. It might be as simple, and I'll pull it up here in a minute, but it might be as simple as a YouTube video. My daughter had to show how blood moves in the circulatory system, and she was struggling with drawing it, and she was getting frustrated because she's a bit of a perfectionist. And so I said, why don't you try VideoScribe? Just lay out your different organs and then show how the blood is moving through a diagram, because she was sort of diagramming it, but she was getting caught up in the illustrations. So she sat down on my computer, I showed her a few things, and I left her for about an hour and a half, and she created much longer than any of us need to watch, but it's an 8-minute video of basically how the blood moves through the circulatory system. Brilliant. And she's 13. So she was 7th grader last year. So it can be used for all different kinds of things and published anywhere you need to publish it. Yeah. Okay. So here are just a couple other little samples here. This is the Quantify a sale example, and my timing was off, I noticed this morning when I went to publish this. But this was the story that I wrote on my porch, and then this is sort of how to quantify the sale as it's being narrated. So this is describing the math of how to quantify a sale when you're selling somebody a telecommunications product for their business.
Dani, does this current video have, or does this have audio at?
There is.
There is audio?
Yeah, and there's audio playing.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I just saw Ant's message as soon as I was talking, so.
Yeah, you can't. Yep.
Okay.
But you know what? I'll post this and share it, and obviously, and you can go listen to it and hear it. Another one that we're working on right now that also has audio, and it's all around if you're on a temporary assignment and you've been relocated. This is basically how your home country is identified, how your taxes are going to be figured, how your payroll is going to look. So there's audio sort of being narrated here. This is an early version. We're in the midst of this project right now. It's got, I don't know, 5 parts, I think. And I think we've done 4 of the 5 parts. We've done them in sections for approval. So that continues to play. This particular section is about 2 minutes. I think overall, we also are dropping in a video of the HRVP, and he sort of talks about why this is so important, kind of the what's in it for me, and then it goes into this video. So we've basically taken this VideoScribe that we've created and we've dropped it into Final Cut Pro. We've added the company logo across the bottom because we want that displayed on every screen. And then what we've done is added some headers to the top that again will display on the whole screen. And then in the beginning of this, we've dropped in the HR video as well of the VP. So you can sort of see as I click through here how it, I mean, these are pretty technical terms that they want people to understand, and then the intention is that they will call up their business consultant, and their business consultant will help them navigate this process. So this was meant to be an informational video just to make them realize they probably have more questions and to use their business consultant. So it's a little bit different in that way. It's not necessarily learning as much as it is informational in this particular example. Yeah, you're right, Ant. find it taxing when companies insist on having their logo. Our best solution for that, especially if you're doing VideoScribe, because on VideoScribe you have to do it in every single frame. That's why we chose to finish it and then drop it into Final Cut and then put a transparent logo across, section across the bottom that just has their logo there the whole time, and then we output it. So what questions do you have? And then I'll show you VideoScribe if we've got a few minutes. I think we do. So I was sort of shooting between 30 and 45 minutes, so I'll show you VideoScribe here in a moment. But any questions? Does your vector art start out looking like a hand-drawn, or does the animation app soften them? No, you could actually soften them in Adobe Illustrator, I think is what I'd probably recommend. So let's say you hand drew them, then you could take them into Illustrator and you could sort of clean up some of your lines, and then you would export it or save it as an SVG and then pop it in. How long does it take to create a 30-minute course using, so I would never create personally a 30-minute course. I've never done anything quite that long. Now a 3-minute course or 3-minute VideoScribe I would then put into the course. That's how I've used it. I haven't actually created the entire course in VideoScribe. To create about a 3-minute video, or 2-minute video, which was this guy right here, let's see. This guy is 2 minutes and 18, and we've got 6 of these sections. They're going to total about 12 minutes, I think. Yeah, 2 minutes, I think, took, Megan, you might have to chime in if you're on, if you would tell it. I think, Megan, this piece took us, how long?
It took me 4 hours per minute.
4 hours per minute. And this was pretty technical content, and we had to go out and find all of these graphics, and so it took a little bit longer. Yeah, that's a good frame of reference. Yeah, Illustrator has a trace function. What you would do is take that illustrated drawing, and that trace function, you use the pencil actually, and when you trace over your lines, the order in which you trace your lines is the order in which VideoScribe is going to draw it. So you can actually manipulate the way your graphic is drawn in Illustrator and then save it as an SVG. It knows the order in which you drew those lines or traced those lines, and then it'll pop them in there that way. Yeah. So let me show you VideoScribe here. I've got it open. So I think, yeah, so we've used this for all different kinds of things. I'm trying to find one. This is one we did a trade show, and we had a monitor, and we just wanted, it was a local trade show for the Denver Chamber, and so we just had this VideoScribe where most of the people we meet from the Denver Chamber don't understand what we do, so we tried to make it as simple as possible. Whew. It's really loud. Hold on. So you can sort of see we tried to describe what sort of business problem our service would solve, and went through that whole process. Pretty easy to navigate, just takes a little getting used to. Tons of tutorials out there though. You can add images to your canvas, so you can add text to your canvas. So I add the text, and then it gets drawn. I can decide, I can add a graph, I can add music, I can add audio. I can change my default hand, so your hand can be any age, any color, you name it. It's very diverse. So you could have, and then your drawing utensil can be a pen, it can be a pencil, it can be a crayon, I think is out there, a marker, a whiteboard. Yeah, you can even choose no hand, that's right. So you noticed on this example that we showed you here, there's no hand in here. Our client didn't want the hand, so we did not put a hand in here. So you can see throughout this whole thing, our images just come in and they're drawn, but we didn't use the hand. Good point.
So we just had a question from Karen about whether the images at the bottom are the ones that have been uploaded?
So actually, these are all images. So this was one we did about 2 years ago. These all we didn't hand drawn. These were all images that we found within VideoScribe. So these all came for free. So if you go into their library, it always takes a bit for it to load. I can just search for stick figure. Maybe that's thinking stick figure, and then it'll show me all of my options. So yeah, we actually don't, we didn't, in this one, we didn't use any custom graphics. So, and now, I don't know, maybe we're frozen, hard to say. Hard to say. So again, I follow the process. I write my script. Then I go into VideoScribe and I start laying out my story. I think of it like a storyboard. I think one thing to know is that, oh, maybe my stick person's not in there. Let me close this real quick. So think of this white piece of paper, and this might be this is probably a US or American example. I'm not sure if it's like this in the UK or other places, but in elementary school, your teachers had those big rolls of paper that they'd put on their bulletin boards, and they'd pull them off those big rolls, and it was just like this never-ending canvas. Yeah, so think about this canvas the same way. This canvas can be moved in every direction, and it's like this big long piece of white paper that never ends. And so you can create your images. If I scroll out, you can see how all of my images are in very different places. I can go up, I can go down, I can go over, and it's like this never-ending piece of paper. So I think that's one concept of VideoScribe when you're building these, that if you don't understand that, you'll be a little confused on how it's working.
So Dani, whilst just showing the sort of the view from sort of far away, the bird's eye view, can we capture that view as part of our VideoScribe, or do we have to do, like each individual picture has to be kind of zoomed into that particular image?
Right. So once you lay out all your graphics and you're ready, right before you drop in your audio, you can time all this, or I'm dropping your audio, you can time this, and you can determine what the camera is going to look like on each of these items. So if I want Bill to be sort of in the middle and I want him to be large, I can sort of zoom in on him and I get him where I want on my white canvas, and then I go down and I click on Meet Bill, and I'm going to notice how that little camera in the bottom right hand corner, if I roll off of it, notice that it's blue. It's depressed, so I've clicked on it. That means I've set my camera. When I click on my person, you can see I've set my camera again. So what I do is I get all my stuff laid out on my white canvas, and then what I do is I go in and set my camera. So if I zoomed in on him real close and I deleted what's here and I set my camera, now when I play it, let me show you what that looks like. Where I've set my camera is exactly what it's going to look like. So what I do is I lay it all out, and then I set my camera for each of these frames on how I want them to look. So obviously that's way too big. I would rather have something like this. So I would click on that object, I would unset my camera and reset my camera, and now when I play it, so you're totally right. To Carl, it is totally like a Prezi drawing. So if you've used Prezi, it's very similar, but much easier. And Prezi, I think when I asked had my daughter do hers, I think that's why it was so easy for her, is because she had worked in Prezi. So she kind of got the whole canvas concept because it's very similar. Each of these images, I can lengthen the time. So right now this plays for 2 seconds. and it ends at 3.5, and so I can sort of see how that's all going. I can also edit these guys, edit the properties, so I can go in and I can animate them, I can pause them, I can how I want them to move in. Do I want them to come from the bottom? Do I want them to come from the side? Again, I don't do any of that fancy stuff until I do until I lay it all out, and then I go back and do some of the fancier stuff. Can you change the font of the text? You can. So if I click on the text and I click on here and there's Meet Bill, I can actually click on the T to change the text, and I can choose the basic font. I can also, I think I've got I've got some of these I actually brought in, so you can bring in your own font. So I can change the way, let's just do this one. And I can import fonts if I want to. I probably shouldn't have clicked on that because now it's going to take a bit. So I can see all my available fonts. I could import other fonts if I wanted. And then we can see how that looks. So kind of changes it. And that's why I don't typically mess with this stuff in terms of like setting my camera until I've got all of those, you know, fonts set and time. I kind of get the timing roughly where I want it. I'm going to have to change the timing once my audio comes in so I can time it with the audio, but that's kind of how I do it. Great questions. Yeah.
So Dani,
one thing. Yeah, let me add one more thing. One thing that you need to know is that this saves to the cloud. So when you're using VideoScribe, you can save it to the cloud, or you can also save it to your computer as well. But it's automatically sort of backing it up as you work, and that's kind of a new concept if you're not used to it as well. Yeah. So how would you import it into Storyline? You would just go publish your project. And you can publish it and create a video file. You can publish it directly to YouTube. You can go straight to Facebook, or you can do PowerPoint. I usually just do create a video file, and then you can choose what kind of, I think I can. Yeah, I can do Windows, WMV, images, AVI, or QuickTime Movie. And so if you need it in some other format, you can, for some reason, I would do it as an MOV. And then what I would use is there's a free tool that I use called Format Factory, and it takes any file type, video file type, and transfers it to another video type. It is a brilliant free product, Format Factory, and you can always change it there if you need to, but then you just publish it, and then you just import your video like you normally would in Storyline. It's really easy. Have you tried this on a tablet? It seems like the interface. Oh, so they actually have this app on your tablet. So if you have like an iPad, you can download VideoScribe, and I have used it a little bit. It doesn't have as much functionality on a tablet as it has on a computer, but you can do this on a tablet and actually design your video on a tablet. Matter of fact, when I do this at conferences, it's usually a hands-on session. I'm doing it actually at Online Learning in September, and I will have people who come to class with just a tablet, and they can do everything we're doing, most everything we're doing in class on their tablet. So I prefer to use it on a computer, but that's just because I'm old and set in my ways. I'm over 40, so I have to use my computer as opposed to a tablet. I'm not young and agile. So.
Dani, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What's your opinion of, whether you think that the market's going to get saturated by these types of videos? I mean, it's an amazing product, and it's very cheap to use. I think in the UK it's about $25 a month to have access to it.
Yeah.
Do you see that one day there's going to be, just too many of them out there, and people will have overdone it, and eventually, people are going to get tired of seeing video scribes?
I I think that's a possibility. I will say when I do this at conferences, only like out of a room of 50, 3 people have used it. So it's a very unknown product still, and when you look at the market, VideoScribe, Go Animate, and Powtoons. Powtoons was actually around the longest, then came around VideoScribe and Go Animate, but those have been really the only 3 vendors on the market, at least for the last 4 years. So you haven't seen this rush to the market with products the way you did with like e-learning products or LMSs or things like that. So it's been a little bit of slower. I hope, I hope not, but certainly that could happen. But then I think as instructional designers, it's our job to make sure we figure out a more creative way to use it so that we can still engage our learners. And again, I would never do this for an entire course. I like it because it adds some variety to your e-learning, something that people don't expect to see in your e-learning, and so then they're engaged. Oh, okay. Another tool is Pixton. That's great. Sound like I'm 29. I appreciate it. Okay. So that's all I have. And if anybody has any more questions, or you want to let the panel take on some questions, that's great.
I was just going to say before we talk to the panel, could everyone just type into the chat window whether, I guess, most people answered whether they've used this before, but actually if you've seen this being used like on TV or on e-learning courses, just reply with a yes or no. Interesting to see what kind of, how many people have actually seen it being used. And I guess we're a little bit biased because we work in, instructional design. So I guess, we'll probably keep our eyes open for this kind of thing, but it would be interesting to find out, speaking to the general public, how many people have actually seen this being used.
Yeah.
Looks like most people have seen it being used.
Yeah, UPS has used it quite a bit here in the States.
Cool. Yeah, okay, we can pass it over to the panel then. Does James or Robert, I think James, Robert, and is it Kendra? I've lost track. Is there 2 Kendras on here? I got confused. If any of you guys got any comments or questions?
Yeah, I mean, Dani, thank you so much for your time. You've explained this super simply, and actually you made me feel like I can actually do this myself. Like I was saying in the beginning of the piece, I actually put up a job request on Upwork for this exact thing. I need a whiteboard video created for, like I said, the cannabis training company I'm working on. And I feel like it's the easiest way to do it. So thank you so much for making it sound super easy to use.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, and it's reasonable too. It's reasonably priced, because I know as instructional designers we're always having to purchase software to accommodate our courses. And it's, if you go to VideoScribe.co or you go to Sparkle.com, you can get there as well. They have a couple of different products, but it's SPARKOL.com. It's very reasonably priced. So,
have you used any of the other products?
So I've started to sort of play around with their, I think you say it, TAW, TAWE, TAW. It's basically it turns an image into a video. But I've just played with the trial a little bit because they sent it to me to give it a try, but I haven't actually used it yet.
What were your thoughts on it?
It was cool. I only used it for like a day and a half, and kind of, I didn't actually do a project in it, so I didn't get underneath the hood. I definitely just clicked around to see what it would do, and that was it. So.
And do you see some scope for us being able to use TAW in e-learning projects like VideoScribe?
I don't know how it publishes out because I didn't get that deep into it, but I would guess that it publishes out as a video, and then I would say yes, if that's the case. I think when I didn't download the trial, because usually their trials are only like 7 days, so if I know that I don't have like a set chunk of time to be able to work with it, I don't do it because I don't want to waste my trial. So. Yeah,
no, I understand. Cool. Yep. Thanks for that.
Yep. Yep.
Any more questions from anyone, or anybody else got any stories about when they've used VideoScribe?
Sure, or I can talk about how I've seen it being used.
Yes, please.
So what I've seen some people do is take the podcast or take something that's done by a professional, a TED Talk, or something that's shared under a Creative Commons licensing attribute, and they'll take the audio of that and then create a VideoScribe just drawing illustration of that. I've seen that happen with a couple of TED Talks, where if you're presenting yourself, doing a portfolio piece and saying, here's a tool that I can do with existing audio material or found audio, you can use that to help beef up your portfolio. I've seen that happen a couple of times on the internet, where someone will do a podcast and then 2 weeks later suddenly a YouTube video of that podcast appears, and it's all the drawings and all the VideoScribe tools.
I just realised I've seen that as well, Robert, and I think, yeah, I've seen that on YouTube.
Yep. And strategic illustration uses it a lot. So if you know any strategic illustrators, there are a couple companies here in the Denver area who do strategic illustration. It's amazing. It's beautiful. I've seen it done with their illustrations as well. Once they've illustrated a session, they go back and use VideoScribe to animate that into a video, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, you could even do things like Shakespearean speeches or something like that.
So actually, I took a strategic illustration class, and they had us do something very similar to that. They had us listen, and as we were listening, we were practicing drawing what was being spoken, and then you just take that to the next level, which is put it in. So yeah, it's
right.
So cool.
We just got a question from Carl there. How do most clients feel about this visual style?
Yeah, so what's funny, I was saying before we started this session, the project we did that we're working on right now, that is basically when you get relocated, how does your payroll work, this whole temporary assignment from your host country to your home country. They wanted to do VideoScribe, and we decided not to go that route. The client decided not to go that route. And then we did it in After Effects, and talk about out of scope. We had to rescope the project because after we had done the first few parts in After Effects, they went back and said, we really want VideoScribe. You were we should have stuck with that in the beginning, which is what we recommended that as an option. And they were like, no, we want something more sophisticated than that. And then we did it in After Effects, and then we went back to VideoScribe. So now we're in like phase 2 of the project, a rescoped project, and we're redoing it in VideoScribe, and now they're happy. So a lot of clients really like it because it is different, and it's sort of, while it's simplistic, it's kind of sexy, and it's different. So most of our clients have really liked it.
I think from my experience, VideoScribe versus After Effects, After Effects, yes, it would probably look a lot more professional, but you would also be looking at maybe 10 times the budget for the same kind of volume of work. Yeah. Would you say to that?
Yeah. It can get expensive and hour intensive for sure. So.
Cool. Any more questions, anyone? Cora says one of her clients likes fun and quirky, moving the hand and using custom graphics. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, we're pretty much at the end of the hour. It's 5 p.m. here in the UK, so that means I can log off and go home from work. All the rest of you over in the States and in Canada, you're stuck at work for a few more hours, I guess.
That's all right.
Cool. Well, unless there's any more questions, we'll say thanks to Dani on the chat, and see you all next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks so much, Dani. That was brilliant.
Sure. Have a great day.
Cheers. See you, everyone. Bye.